Anyway, Senator Carper, thank you for holding this hearing today to examine innovative bipartisan solutions to manage industrial greenhouse gas emissions. We've achieved the greatest success, I think, as a committee, including on climate, which we have worked on in a bipartisan way. The committee's surface transportation and water infrastructure legislation served as the backbone of the IIJA. The surface transportation portion of the IIJA included a first-of-a-kind subtitle devoted to climate change, featuring 2 new formula programs, one centered on carbon reduction and on resiliency. The IIJA served as a vehicle for many provisions from other committees to address emission, including industrial emissions. Chairman Carper and I managed that legislation across the floor, and so we negotiated many of these positions as well. Particularly important to me, and the chairman mentioned this in his statement, the legislation included the Regional Hydrogen Hub program administered by the DOE. As he mentioned, one of the 7 hubs the DOE recently selected is the Appalachian Regional Clean Hydrogen Hub, known as R-W.Va. This hub includes the states of West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. R-W.Va will produce both green hydrogen, which is hydrogen produced through the electrolysis of water, but also blue hydrogen, which is hydrogen produced from abundant Appalachian natural gas with carbon capture and storage technologies to reduce emissions. When up and running, R-W.Va will supply hydrogen to a broad mix of hard-to-decarbonize industries, from energy to transportation to chemical manufacturing to steel production. It's no secret that carbon capture, which will be a critical component of the R-W.Va hub, remains capital intensive and is yet to be commercially viable deployment. Chairman Carper, I really appreciate your years-long partnership with me in supporting carbon capture as a technology. This is why I've been a long supporter of 45Q to advance this technology that will be essential in preventing emissions and through direct air capture to reduce atmospheric conditions of carbon dioxide. R-W.Va and all other future CCUS developments stand to benefit not only from 45Q, but also from prior legislation out of this committee, such as the Use It Act, which Chairman Carper and Senators Barrasso and Whitehouse and I led. Signed into law in 2020, the Use It Act, when implemented as intended, would ensure all carbon capture projects of all types of facilities can be permitted in a timely fashion. I said when implemented as intended because some of the administration's recent actions suggest they are not dutifully looking to expedite the permitting of these types of projects. For instance, for broad deployment of CCUS to become feasible, the EPA must approve Class 6 injection well applications to securely store the carbon underground. I believe your state is one of only 2 that have been able to do this on a state basis. In the IIJA, I supported the inclusion of $50 million for states to obtain primacy of this program, as well as $25 million for the EPA to process those permits at the federal level. The EPA needs the help because it has historically only approved 2 of these permits, and it took an average of 6 years to do this. The IIJA was signed into law 2 years ago today, November 15th, 2023, and only last week did the EPA finally announce the money for states to apply for primacy. In addition to delaying the application process for funding, the administration has now loaded up the primacy application project with new guidance and directions to address environmental justice that seems designed to slow projects down or suggest they are not safe. Meanwhile, the EPA has not permitted any of the 169 well applications that are now pending. Instead of focusing on expediting permitting and environmental reviews, the President's Council on Environmental Quality has focused on changing the rules of the road for the NEPA process. The administration's recent proposal, instead of simplifying the environmental review and permitting process, as Congress directed in the recent debt limit legislation, would add hurdles to these processes and expand the scope of reviews, opening projects up to increased delays and legal challenges. I do not want to suggest hydrogen and CCUS are our only tools for reducing industrial emissions, but I think we need to take wind of the regulatory headwinds that we are facing. I support other bipartisan solutions to reducing industrial emissions, such as utilizing advanced nuclear for industrial purposes. My bipartisan bill with the chairman, the ADVANCE Act, includes a number of important policies to deploy advanced nuclear to do just that. No matter how good the bipartisan solutions this committee and others enact to address climate change are, our efforts will never be realized if the projects they support are never built due to permitting challenges or a slew of new EPA regulations. Regulations such as the forthcoming Particulate Matter 2.5 National Ambient Air, NAAQS, I'll call it NAAQS because that's what it is, that the administration is rumored to plan, finalizing at a level that will plunge much of the country into non-attainment, requiring stricter permitting or offsets for new infrastructure or industrial facilities. Regulations such as the Clean Power Plan 2.0 that would undermine reliability and drive up the cost of power for manufacturing with its unachievable short-term targets. Antiquated regulations like the New Source Review will stymie upgrades at existing power plants and manufacturing facilities. So the list goes on and on. I urge my colleagues to continue to work with me on permitting reform and updating outdated environmental regulations, areas within our committee's jurisdiction, so we can assure that emissions-reducing technologies can actually get out of the market and make a difference. Thank you to all of the witnesses who are here today, and I look forward to our discussion and learning more about your efforts to reduce carbon emissions.
All right.